build the tabernacle, see to it that you make everything according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. Okay? But the ministry Jesus has received is as superior to theirs as the covenant of which he is mediator is superior to the old one. Now think about what the writer here is saying. He said Jesus, as a priest, is as superior to the priests of the old covenant as the new covenant itself is superior to the old one. And it is founded on better promises. For if there had been nothing wrong with the first covenant, and what's the implication here? There is something wrong with the first covenant. It is inferior to the second covenant, the new covenant. If there had been nothing wrong with that first covenant, no place would have been sought for another. Would have been no need for a new covenant. The time is coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Jacob. But God found fault with the people and said, it is not like the covenant I made with their forefathers when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they did not remain faithful to my covenant, and I turned away from them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after that time, declares the Lord. I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. In the old covenant, where had the laws been written? On the tablets of stone. The new covenant, where are the laws written? On our hearts. Not on the outside, but on the inside. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will a man teach his neighbor or a man his brother, saying, know the Lord, because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. For I will forgive their wickedness, and I will remember their sins no more. Now that's a powerful statement, because that doesn't mean that somehow God's memory is flawed, but it means he chooses not to bring them to his remembrance. Do you follow? He chooses not to bring them up, not to have kind of a gotcha moment, oh, you thought your sins were forgiven. You thought I had forgotten. Gotcha. No, not like that at all. When they are forgiven, they are forgotten by God. Okay? For I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. By calling this covenant new, he has made the first one obsolete. And what is obsolete and aging will soon disappear.
Good news.
Very good news. Let's sing another song. Made Me Glad. It's lit up.
We're live.
We're live. Hello. I will bless the Lord forever. I will trust him at all times. He has delivered me from all fear. He has set my feet upon the rock. I will not be moved. I'll say of the Lord, you are my shield, my strength. have I in heaven but you? There's none I desire beside you.
You have made me glad.
You have made me glad. I'll say of the Lord, you are my shield, my strength, my portion, deliverer, my shelter, strong tower, my very present help. You are my shield, my strength, my portion, deliverer, my shelter, strong tower, my very present help in time of need. You have made me glad. I'll say of the Lord, you are my shield, my strength, my portion, deliverer, my shelter, strong tower, my very present help. You are my shield, my strength, my portion, deliverer, my shelter, strong tower, my very present help. You are my shield, my strength, my portion, deliverer, my shelter, strong tower, my very present help in time of need. My very present help in time of need. My very present help in time of need. Amen. Nice job. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Karen. Thank you. From Zechariah chapter 8, verse 11. But now I will not deal with the remnant of this people as I did in the past, declares the Lord. This moment, I can keep saying it, this moment is at the crossroads, the intersection of the past and the future. And we know that time moves so fast that the sentence I just used about the present is now in the past. But then everything that comes after is the future. It's one of those strange things about time and past and present and future. I've always been interested, I've always been fascinated by the future. I'm kind of a futurist because I'm going to spend the rest of my life in the future. Everything, every event, every experience, every relationship that we have had is preparatory to the future. And I don't know if this is good or bad, right or wrong, but I find myself probably less interested in the future now than I was 30 years ago, because there'll be less of it now than there would have been 30 years ago. But still, the future fascinates me. And what God is saying here in Zechariah 8:11 is simple. The future will be different from the past. I will not deal with the remnant of this people as I did in the past, says the Lord. The future is going to be different. How I deal with you, what you experience, what you go through in the future is going to be different than the past. When we look back, which I think is an important part of the new year, I like looking forward, but it's also helpful to look back, to reflect, not to obsess, there's a difference, but to reflect, to consider, to think about our failures and our flaws and our mistakes from the past. The past is sort of like when you go back to the old home that you used to live in. It's a nice place to visit, but you're not living there anymore. And that's how it is with our personal past. It's a nice place to visit, but we're not living there anymore. We live in this moment, and this moment continues into the future. And so when we look back, we see our flaws and our failures, but hopefully we also see our successes, and we reflect on those. We give them as much attention and learn as much from those as we do from our failures and our flaws. Our tendency, I think, is probably to reflect more on the flaws and the failures, and sometimes we neglect appreciating and realize the successes. Because if it's a success, it likely came more easily and more naturally to us, though there are some of those successes that are hard-won and very effortful. But God's intention is that we be so free from the bondage to hurtful events and experiences and relationship that each day is profoundly and fundamentally new. See, the New Testament authors had a strong dislike and distaste for the old, and a deep appreciation and acknowledgement, a real love for the new. And particularly the old as it related to God's covenant with us. And remember, the covenant is God's promise. But there was a breakdown in that old covenant, not on God's side, but on our side. God said, I'm going to be with you. You're going to be my people. We said, we don't want to be your people. We want to go our way. We want to make our own choices and our own decisions, whether you like it or not. Well, so there's going to be a new covenant. And the new covenant, according to what we read, is superior and better and new compared to the old covenant, which, according to what we just read, was wrong and obsolete and aging. You see how fundamentally different the old covenant was and inferior to the new covenant. Because the old covenant had a certain purpose and the new covenant another purpose. Paul, in fact, made these comparisons. The old covenant was the law, the new covenant was grace, the old covenant was bondage, the new covenant is freedom, the old covenant was death, and the new covenant is life. You couldn't get much more different than that. So here we are in the present, looking back to our old life, our old decisions, looking forward to new life and new decisions as God moves us into newness of life, new perspective, new decisions, new behaviors, new attitudes, newness. So the new year is an appropriate reminder of the redemptive and the transforming of new covenant and new promise. One of the things that I think a lot of us do around New Year's is, if we don't write down resolutions and goals, at least we think about resolutions and goals. You know, what we would like to do differently, what we would like to see different in our lives in the new year as opposed to the old year. And so I want to share tonight what I learned in 2011. Now, I'm only going to show 3 things. I hope I learned more than 3 things. I counted them up. I think I learned 9. I think I learned 9 things last year. But I'm going to share with you 3 things that I learned last year that might be helpful to you. The first one is, we can do better than we think with less than we think. And really, I want to thank some of my counseling clients for teaching me that truth. One of them said recently, if you would have told me 6 months ago that I could go 6 months without working and be okay, he said, I never would have believed it. See, living better with less. Less dinners out, less cruises, less traveling, less movies, and then more time to talk, more time to read and think and pray, more time with family. Yes. See, you won't have quality time if you don't make time. You follow me? You know, I mean, we talk sometimes, well, you know, you want to have quality time with the kids, but you can't have quality time if you don't make time. One of the things I hear people say, well, I'll do this when I find the time. Where do you go to find time? You know, if it's going to happen, it's because you make time for it to happen. Otherwise, you know, we kind of get into our default settings, and what has been our pattern continues to be our pattern unless we decide, again, to make it different. Our gadgets, our cell phones, iPads, iPods, what are the other I's? You know, they subtly but surely help us avoid contact and connection with each other and with God. Picture this, married couple. He's in one room with one computer, while she's in another room with another computer, and then they wonder how they drifted apart. But see, I know I'm susceptible and I'm vulnerable to the newest, fastest, flashiest pieces of electronic stuff. That it can be very seductive. I saw an ad the other night for an 84-inch HD 3D plasma flat-screen TV with HD stereophonic laser-guided, just kidding about that, laser-guided surround sound. And I thought, you know, I need one of those. You know? But then I thought, nobody needs one of those. I mean, just because they need to sell it doesn't mean I need to buy it. But there's an appeal, isn't there, for the newest, the flashiest. You know, you have phones now. Actually, they aren't phones; they're computers that have telephonic capability, right? And but smartphones, iPhones. And you can get apps that'll tie your shoelaces, and apps that'll pick out your clothes in the morning, and apps that'll tell you who you should marry. Well, not yet, but they're working on it. But the risk of technology is that it can reduce our humanity. if it is true that we can live better than we think with less than we think, that will make a difference in what we are able to give to the church and give to other charities. But if our orientation is to buy it, protect it, maintain it, and replace it when the new one comes out, then we will have less to give when people and institutions we care for need our giving. And every once in a while we need your giving, but we don't need your giving as much as you need to give. You know, it's not because we need it. We do. But it's because you need to give. You do. I've learned that we can live better than we think with less than we think, but now let's see through 2012 if I can put that learning into practice. Another thing I learned, this is number 2 out of the 9 things that I learned last year, 3 of which I'm going to share with you. You may wonder what the other 6 are. I don't know yet. But the second thing I learned is that relationships matter. One of the great deficits in our culture today is the many, many, many people who are underfriended. Keeping in mind that as Christians, our spiritual life is only as good as our relationships. And a lot of times when people talk about being a Christian, it's about Christian beliefs and it's about Christian behavior. But in its essence, being a Christian is about a relationship with God and a relationship with each other. Isn't that what we read a few minutes ago from John 15:12? You know, love each other the way I loved you. That's relationship. It's relationship that is about behavior, but it's not primarily behavior. It's primarily about connectedness. Reaching out and touching and allowing yourself to be touched at a deep level by someone else. Depression is considered to be the common cold of mental health issues. And both a cause and a symptom of depression is social withdrawal. If you take a healthy individual and you put them in their house and you tell them for a week, I don't want you to leave the house. In fact, I don't even want you to leave. You can go from the bedroom to the bathroom to wherever the television is. Don't shower, don't shave, don't change your clothes. At the end of the week, you may have 2 depressed people. But being socially withdrawn, isolated, is one of the causes as well as one of the symptoms of clinical depression. It's being disconnected from other lives, from other souls. Remember, God said it's not good for the human to be alone. We are made for connection. And we are out of sync with our true being when we isolate, when we withdraw, when we are underfriended. And it's difficult. You know, you think about a couple of generations ago, Christmas time, you know, going to Grandma and Grandpa's house for Christmas. And you go there and you have a turkey or a ham or whatever. And you have a good time at Grandma and Grandpa's house. You and the kids go to Grandma and Grandpa's house. But now Grandma lives in North Carolina with her new husband. Grandpa lives in Arizona with his live-in girlfriend. How do you put that on a Hallmark card? You know? But you know what I'm talking about. The disintegration of family connections is getting more and more and more severe by generations. And distance and death and disinterest conspire to reduce the number of real friends in our lives to pathologically low levels. 2 of my best buds one lives 700 miles away, the other lives 1,000 miles away, and we get together every couple of years. Boy, you know what I mean? And by the way, men, I think we particularly suffer from being under-friended. Fortunately, the church is not only a spiritual institution, it's also a social institution where we can build quality, long-lasting relationships with people who share our lives and who share in our journey. Our December schedule reminded me of a couple of things. Number one, it reminded me that our expenses continue even when we don't have church. The second thing it reminded me of is I don't see you guys enough. I would like to do more things and go to more places with you. Because not only do I love you, I like you. You're the kind of people I enjoy hanging around. But as far as I'm concerned, we don't hang around with each other enough. And part of that is the reality of my schedule. Part of it is the reality of your schedule. I would like to see us do better on that next year. And with Dave being gone, I don't know who's going to build the bonfire. We may have to go to Rich's. Yeah.
Got a lot of stuff you can burn.
We're saving.
And probably one of the greatest tragedies is that in our isolated, individualistic culture, we really think we don't need each other. We don't need each other. We can do perfectly fine without these connections and without praying with each other and talking about our spiritual journey together. We think we don't need each other. We must. That's the way we act, But if we think we don't need each other, we are wrong. We do. We desperately need each other. Relationships matter. And the third point I want to make is change is coming. I don't know what all is going to happen in 2012, but I know change is coming. I know that's a certainty. And I also know that it's a certainty I don't like. And again, as I'm getting older, I don't like change more than I used to not like change. See, because what change feels like for us is that it feels like loss. It comes at a cost. It feels uncomfortable. And sometimes we talk about change as if not changing were an option. Not changing is not an option. And it's almost like we think, well, I'd like to grow as a Christian as long as I could do it without changing. But you can't grow without changing. And so sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes the idea of growing / changing goes against the grain. Because I like being the way I am. Not because it's the right way, but because I'm comfortable with it. And for me to change means I'm going to be uncomfortable at some level. At emotionally, I'm going to feel unsettled and uncomfortable, and but change is something I'm committed to, whether I like it or not. And change is something that's going to happen, whether I like it or not. So, it's not a matter of there being no change either out here or in here. But two things. Number one, allowing God to orchestrate the change in my life that He wants to the degree and the pace that He wants to. Secondly, because of God, I can deal with that change. See, because of the certainty and the security of who he is and who he is in my life, I can deal better with the chaos around me. One example of change, I think, is in our language. Language changes all the time. An example of the change in our language is, how many of you have heard the term T-bowing? T-bowing, you heard that? It's not always complimentary, but it was given to describe Tim Tebow, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, his prayer posture. Down on one knee, either looking down or looking up, Tebowing. And if you haven't heard, he's gotten criticism about that, not only from other football players, but commentators and even some Christian teachers and Christian leaders. And that really puzzles me, partly because the enemy's desire is not to confront Christianity, but to dilute Christianity. So that instead of a vibrant, strong, virile Christianity, it's Christianity light. 30% less power. And so Tim Tebow is an example of gutsy, manly Christianity that makes some people uncomfortable. But my perspective is, as far as I'm concerned, Tim Tebow is not answerable. By the way, two things. Tim Tebow seems to be a pretty good guy. He seems to be a strongly committed Christian who was born in a missionary family and seems to be not perfectly, but pretty consistent in the way he lives his life and his faith. And in fact, he's going to be speaking at Southeastern, where I teach, in March. I can't get a ticket, but Tim Tebow is not answerable to me or to the football commentators or to his teammates or to his coach for his acknowledgement of his faith and his praise to God. He's only answerable to God. And so whether the Broncos beat Pittsburgh on Sunday, which I hope they do, being raised in Cleveland, the important thing to me is that Tim Tebow be strong and consistent in his faith and being a man of integrity.
Important thing for me is that he wins.
Thank you, Chris.
I know he's a Christian. He needs to win the game.
I tried to take the high road.
Sorry, I've been a Bronco fan my whole life. It's tough.
But, that's just one small example of new words. And words are powerful, and words represent reality. And so, I wish Tim Tebow the most ginormous luck on Sunday. By the way, have you heard the most annoying word in 2011? There was a survey of the most annoying word in 2011, and the winner was whatever. So anyway, a couple of points, and then we'll wrap up. Oops, sorry. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the assurance of things not seen. There's something about faith that looks forward differently than lack of faith. There's something about looking forward with faith. Because you take away the faith and you have discouragement and you have pessimism and you have worry. With faith, you have optimism, you have positivity, and you have hope. And I'll talk more about this next week, to look forward with faith. And I want to conclude with just this thought from Hebrews 8 that we read a few minutes ago. I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. That's what the new covenant is about. It's about God working in you. And His laws are not the 10. His laws in the new covenant are love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the summation of His laws by which He wants us to live our life. Let's conclude with singing this next song, I Surrender All, which again is a good way to begin the new year, with surrender. I was talking with someone recently, and we were talking about the spiritual journey and how helpful really the 12 steps is of AA. And one of the beautiful things, and I need to be reminded of this because I think AA, alcohol, 12 steps, alcohol. Only in one of the 12 steps is alcohol mentioned. Everything else is about spiritual growth. And it's about the process. It's a decision and a process to surrender. And to live out of that surrenderedness in the hands of God.